Would it be possible to write a script for a reality you would like to live in and with some specific techniques manage to transport yourself to that reality? I don't know about that, but this practice has a name. It's called shifting, and for 30 days I dedicated myself to it, and I'm going to show you the results here. Hello beings, welcome to the experience. My name is Flamino, and today I'm going to show you how my experience was trying to spend 30 days going to my desired reality. Or, I don't know, shifting. That's what they say, right? Leave a like here before the video starts. To help my work, because it's a really cool topic, I'm a big fan of this kind of subject, and it's going to be an interesting video. I think in the last few months here on the channel, this has been the most requested video by everyone. In the comments, the first few times I saw those comments, I was totally lost, you know? I said, what are these people talking about? Shift in desired reality. So I went to research to see if there was any basis for it, because there were a lot of comments about it, really a lot. So let's go. What is shift? What is this so-called doctor? How do you go to the desired reality? The desired reality, right? Which is the acronym for doctor. Good thing it's not the doctor for relationship discussions, right? For God's sake, shift would be like switching, right? And switching what exactly? People talk about shifting, right? It became a verb to shift to another reality. Which other reality, right? The so-called desired reality. According to the theories, there are many realities out there. Those multiverse things, different timelines, you know, like you've seen in movies. I'm definitely not going to go too deep into this explanation about timelines, but I think the theory is amazing, really cool. It's a topic I love to talk about. But basically, while you're living here in several other timelines, in several other dimensions, there are other yous, other realities of your same self, other clones of you living infinite different realities, infinite, and that's what shifting is, right? The act of shifting, of you switching, would be you switching from this current reality to another one of those timelines. And then there was a trend that went viral both on TikTok and Reddit in several places. There are even a lot of videos here on YouTube of people creating techniques to be able to make this switch. And I admit that when I saw the meaning of shifting, that it was this, I was like, what the fuck, what are these people? It can't be real, it must be a meme, there's no way, but it wasn't a meme. A lot of people were sharing stories about actually being able to make this switch, to shift and change realities, and go to another timeline and then come back afterwards. To describe it, and something really funny is that there are patterns in these stories, like one person mentions something and another person who doesn't even know them mentions the same thing. So I went there to study the subject, to see what the techniques were to make this happen, and I tried them out, following exactly everything that was required. For those who know the channel here, I test things as strictly as I can. I'm very disciplined when it comes to following rules. And then one of the most common things I noticed, because there are hundreds of different ways to achieve this, people who developed their own methods, people who created methods with the name Coraline Guitar Method. Many different ways, but there is a pattern in most of them. You make a script of the reality you want to shift to. I'll explain how to shift in a moment, but before that, you have to visualize where you want to go. And this thing went viral, if I'm not mistaken, because of Draco Malfoy. And people started trying to shift to a reality where they lived at Hogwarts. Previously, people would write on a small piece of paper, I want to go to the reality where I live at Hogwarts, before trying the techniques. I'm a wizard there, very famous, it's not a catastrophic place with dangers like it is in the series. I want to stay there for a certain amount of time, I want to have a certain appearance, to write everything down, all these details. And then, from what I noticed, most people's technique is to go to sleep and do some practices before going to bed. So I already connected the dots and said, hey, this looks very similar. Lucid dreaming technique or self-hypnosis. Actually, the techniques to have lucid dreams aren't that different from self-hypnosis. And some patterns I notice people mentioning frequently, right? To do this before sleeping so that when you sleep you can switch realities was to drink water, and I also saw some people mentioning that you should meditate before sleeping and strengthen this visualization of the place you want to go to, man. This is basically a dream induction to have a lucid dream. I also saw a lot of people talking about self-affirmations, about you doing several self-affirmations, but there are many techniques, like there are hundreds. You just have to open a social network and write, just like going to the desired reality. Techniques that will show up in all kinds of different videos, like ways that people created themselves managed to achieve this, and you choose the one you prefer. And then, before actually doing these techniques, I thought, okay, it seems a lot like a lucid dream, which makes the person know that it's not just a dream, that they really switched realities. And then there are some things that are different from a lucid dream, which are the symptoms, which would be the symptoms of you making the transition, of you shifting, and wow, there is a huge variety of symptoms. People mention a lot about tachycardia, the heart starting to race, feeling a change in temperature, starting to feel really cold, feeling shortness of breath. And then I noticed a connection with another experience I had here on the channel, which is astral projection. A lot of people mentioned exactly the symptoms of a transition. To have an astral projection, but from what I've studied about astral projection, there's no way for us to create a script and go into an astral projection exactly the way we created this script. And that's what got me intrigued, you know? Some people have managed to achieve this, and it seems like a lucid dream, but there are things that aren't part of a lucid dream because there are symptoms. And it's also not an astral projection because we can't create a script for astral projection, so it's not a lucid dream and it's not an astral projection. So I went there, I wrote my script, right? I noticed there's a pattern where people write scripts related to television shows, movies, to living out fantasy realities, right? And I thought, okay, should I follow this pattern? I want to go to a reality that's kind of like a role-playing game, kind of like Lord of the Rings, where there are elves, where there are other races, and it's a medieval world and all that. And I wrote my script really nicely, really complex with a lot of details, and then I went on to follow the practices, right? The one I noticed that goes more viral, that's what I did. The Raven technique is the one people talk about the most, right? So I went and did the Raven technique, I did it. On the first day I ended up falling asleep, had a random dream, nothing to do with my script. On the second day I tried, I didn't even remember my dream because I also didn't wake up to write it down and all that. I just woke up and had forgotten that I had done the technique and went on with my day. I tried, I think 3-4 days, it's written here in my journal, and nothing, no results. And I realized more and more as I learned about the subject that there were a lot of lucid dreaming techniques included. Then I thought, I've had lucid dreams for a long time and already experienced some amazing ones, right? As I've mentioned several times here on the channel, what if I've always been switching realities, and is that what lucid dreaming is? It's the same thing, just with different names. Then I thought, man, what am I gonna do? I'm going to try to have a lucid dream. I'm going to try to have a lucid dream and question things inside that lucid dream. Do some tests to figure out if a lucid dream or if lucid dreams are an alternate reality, another timeline. So there I went to do another experiment with lucid dreams. This time the goal was to identify the difference in a lucid dream and to question within a lucid dream if that isn't another reality. Because I've had many dreams where I was lucid in the dream but I couldn't control it, and were those dreams other realities? And every time I get ready to have a lucid dream, to have a lot of control over the dream, what I call being 100% lucid, where you can change anything you want, I have to do a bit of a preparation, actually a pretty involved one, with a lot of patience. First, I have to relearn and get used to remembering my dreams every day. Then, after that, I need to stay longer inside the dream and gradually increase my lucidity. And then, my little dream journal again. For those who have seen my dream videos, it's all here, see? It's where I write down my dreams, and it's really interesting to write them down. When you write down your dreams, you start getting used to dreaming and remembering them more and more, each time more deeply. I spent 7 days doing lucid dreaming practices, dream induction and all that to get myself used to it again. In those 7 days, I had 2 dreams that were 100% lucid where I controlled the situation completely. I'm not going to read it. One of them is kind of personal, and I even titled it, Fight with Dad. As soon as I realized I was dreaming, I did my practices to check if I was dreaming. It becomes a habit actually to question yourself if you're dreaming. I realized I was dreaming while I was having a fight with my dad. It was a really ugly fight. Not physical, but the kind where you might cut off the relationship. I was really sad. Really sad. I have a really good relationship with my dad, with my mom. My relationship with my family is excellent, and I think that's why, right? It became easy to realize that I was dreaming, and as soon as I realized I was dreaming, everything just froze. It was like time stopped and it was my turn to act, like what am I gonna do now that I know I'm lucid, right? And I started flying. And one thing I always like to do when I'm in a dream is to fly out of the planet. I always discover some really weird stuff. And I talked to an entity outside the planet, which was a gigantic being, kind of spectral, kind of transparent. And he was in front of the sun and I was talking to him. And here is our whole conversation, There was a lot of really cool stuff. The cool thing about this dream is that I was totally lucid, but talking to this spectral being. The conversation came to me in a way that I wouldn't have created myself. And these are the points that are questionable. If I really was in another reality and a reality where I had powers, then why would I make the monster say that? I wasn't thinking about his answer, when I asked, "Oh, what are you?" When we have total control of the dream, we also have control over all the NPCs inside the dream, and you can control both what others say and how others act. It's incredible, but you have to be at a maximum level of lucidity. But when that spectral being appeared there in front of the sun, I asked what he was, and I didn't want to have control over him, so he would answer whatever I wanted, and so on. Because I was so lucid that I knew I was there to find out if that was a dream, if it was an alternate reality, if it was another timeline. And then I let the answer come, and the answer came after I woke up. When I realized it had nothing to do with it, I was still kind of influenced, like, wow, what a cool answer. After I woke up and started writing it down, I said, "Mom, what he's saying doesn't make any sense." Well, basically the spectral being mentioned here that I should stop using the universe as a crutch because that could leave me glassy-eyed. Then, after I woke up, I said, "Dude, glassy-eyed, is that what he said? The part about being glassy-eyed, right?" He said, "Every time you do that, it hurts me, but I can't take away your free will." Ha 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 ha, he was laughing. Yeah, he laughed a lot at that sentence. It's a bit embarrassing to read these things from the dream since they really don't make any sense. I didn't mention the rest of the conversation, which had lines that made no sense. Then I woke up thinking, wow, what a bad strategy. No matter what the Minho cow answered me, it wouldn't prove anything to me there whether it was a dream or not. And then I thought of a better strategy, and the strategy was, okay, I'm going to induce a dream exactly the way I wrote the script to go to the desired reality. There then in the medieval world and everything with different races and all that, the way I wrote it exactly, I decided to induce a dream exactly like what I did in the script to go to the desired reality. So, like in my own way, if lucid dreaming is a desired reality, if it's a separate timeline, I know how to reach it through lucid dreaming. If it is, if it's not, I'll find out why in that dream. In my script, everything was just right there. A place with different races, a medieval environment. The time I was going to stay there, which I set as 2 days, and there was a detail I added to my script, I wouldn't have control over the place. Why? When I'm fully lucid in the dream, there's a feeling, any lucid dreamer will know, there's a sense of how lucid you are, of how much power you have to change things. Sometimes in the dream I say, oh, I still can't change the settings, so I keep spinning around and I use several techniques to try to get that control to change the setting. And it's a feeling you have of certainty of control over the dream. It's really hard to explain that. And what if I could go into a lucid dream or a desired reality? Exactly the same. I put it in the script, but in my script I wouldn't have any power there. And if in that dream I manage to have power over something, it automatically proves that it's a lucid dream. Yes, because if in my script I have no power at all, and then in my dream I go and have power. That's it. It's a dream, not a desired reality. Well, in my head it made sense, right? That was one of the techniques I tried to prove that the dream was a dream and not another reality or anything like that. But it took me a while. It took me, let's see how many days, 9 days. It took me 9 days to be able to do that. And the process I used to do that was very simple, right? It was a bit of meditation. When I spend a lot of time meditating, I end up having more concentration than usual. And what about dream induction? Dream induction, for those who aren't used to this term, is when you use several references before sleeping so that they come up during your sleep. One thing that really helped me in this process was playing Baldur's Gate, because Baldur's Gate takes place in a medieval setting where there are several races, and I've been playing it at night. It helps to keep it in mind so you can dream about that situation. But even so, I did specific practices, like looking at specific images, taking miniatures and leaving them there next to my bedside. and do as much as possible, generate as much mental influence as possible related to the script. So that when you dreamed, you could take that with you. Well, let's go. I woke up in a bed in a wooden room. Everything was made of wood and there were triangular windows. I even drew it in many situations. I draw things that are very different. I don't know if you'll be able to see it here. Here, look, it was a window. It was like this, triangular. As soon as I got out, a kind of monstrous woman served me a big mug and shouted, my handwriting here is hard for me to understand because you wake up holding the little notebook like this and the handwriting gets terrible. She called out to some people outside that I had arrived, shouted to some people outside that I had arrived. I also made a note of it. I drew this mug because it was a mug with four handles to hold, but here I only drew 3 because of the perspective. I could only see 3. The taste was very unique, but it was sweet and had a strong smell, kind of citrusy and oily, like butter. Wow, I remember that feeling very clearly. Now that I'm reading it, it seems like I'm drinking melted butter. Regarding the appearance of the drink, but the taste was something totally different. I couldn't compare it to anything else. I realized by the reflection of the drink that it was a dream. In the reflection of this drink, my face was split. The reflection was in one corner of the mug and the other half of my face was in another corner of the mug. It didn't make any sense. At that moment, I realized it was a dream. Because we start to question ourselves, right? Out of habit, and you say, wow, why is my face split? In the reflection, it's a dream, and that's when this dream experience really started to matter from that point on, because that's when I really started to test things. I spent a considerable amount of time doing exercises to increase my lucidity, while the woman with the ugly face was bothering me. I was trying to do the spinning exercises and everything else, to increase lucidity inside the dream, to increase control inside the dream. And this woman with the kind of monstrous face kept coming near me all the time, stopping me. Man, it was so annoying. After a long time, I managed to reach good lucidity and I stopped time to analyze the environment. These details of stopping to analyze the environment are really cool. Because you keep looking like, look at what my mind created, right? When you're really lucid in the dream, you ask yourself, why did my brain create this setting? But in this situation, I created the script. So I went to check if I was really in a place, exactly like I had done in the script. And it was exactly the way I had done it in the script. I woke up in a wooden room and I didn't even realize it. I woke up not knowing it was a dream. In a kind of medieval room with plants and everything, with lots of ornaments. When I went outside, I found myself in a beautiful medieval city with a giant windmill. Look how cool that is. To test if I really had power, I decided to make a tornado happen right there. Wow, what a psychopath, right? Okay, so I went there to test if I really had any power over the situation. I made a tornado happen. The tornado appeared and started to devastate the city. Look what a jerk, man. Why did I do that? And if it's another reality, I'm devastating it with my power. The vision of the tornado devastating the city was very realistic. People running, desperate, debris killing people. My god, I noticed some people who looked like elves. Look how cool. The way I wrote it in the script, I decided to stop time. A lot of things were in the air because of the tornado. I saw the faces of people screaming in desperation, houses that were about to fall, but time was completely stopped and under my control.
Powerful help.
I remembered the scene from their movie Fantastic Beasts where they rebuild the city with magic, and I did the same. I started to rebuild the city extremely fast, even faster than it had been destroyed. I thought it was impressive to have power over all that, but it confirmed to me that it really was a dream and not a new reality because I had the power. And then, right, I woke up, wrote all this down and said okay. I had control over the situation, but in the script I had written that I wasn't powerful, obviously, so it was a lucid dream like I've always had and all that. The lucid dreaming techniques worked in there and all. What else could I try to do to differentiate a dream from a parallel reality? What would differentiate a dream from a parallel reality? And then it crossed my mind to question people from that world about that world, to ask what happens. How was that person's previous day? What happens in a certain place? Calm down, he's powerful. If I go to that place, what will I find there? Because it's not really there anymore. My mind is creating it, right? I believe so. So I decided to do that. I'm going to control the dream and question someone from that dream about that place and about that person. It took me a while to reach that level of lucidity again. I lost a lot of practice. I spent a long time, wow, there's a drawing that's really crazy. I spent a long time without practicing lucid dreaming, right? Which is actually kind of problematic. It's addictive. If you start to get powerful in your dreams, you start getting addicted to sleeping. Look at the title of this dream, Interrogation of My Clone. I realized I was lucid after falling from the elevator. As always, I put as always, because every time I'm in an elevator in a dream and it falls, I get that sinking feeling in my stomach, that bad sensation. I know that I'm dreaming. It became a trigger for me, so I actually feel happy when I realize the elevator is falling. I was in the building on Polista where Kaio works. Kaio is the guy who invests my money right there on the ground floor. I started doing the lucidity exercises. It was really hard and I was having a bit of trouble moving around and my vision was blurry. I managed to reach a good state of lucidity, but I realized that my time there was limited. I wasn't able to change my condition. And many times when we're dreaming, it feels like we have to do things before the dream ends. That's an almost physical feeling inside the dream, knowing it's going to end, as if you're desperate, little by little, regaining the awareness that you're in bed. I looked through the glass door outside the building, which by the way wasn't on Paulista. I thought I was in that building, but apparently outside wasn't Paulista. Going outside, I started looking for which person I should question. I don't know why I didn't ask the questions to anyone who was right next to me. Paying close attention to a guy from afar, I realized it was myself, but with short hair. I ran up to him, basically I stopped him, he looked at me astonished, and I said, "Are you me?" And he said, "Yes, this other one." I was wearing my hair kind of like Zac Efron's in High School Musical and wearing latex clothes. Man, that makes no sense. I asked if he was available to answer some questions from Douglas from another timeline, and he said yes. I asked the other me what he had done. The day before, he said he had worked in an office and the boss yelled at him and he couldn't get the work done on time. I asked him what his relationship with family and friends was like. He said there wasn't much time for family and friends because of too much work. And look how much sense it makes that he's working too much. He got scolded by the boss. Him, right? Him and me? Because of that, he also doesn't have time for family and friends. Man, that's crazy, isn't it? I asked him why he was so willing to answer me, since it didn't make any sense for a clone of him to be asking these kinds of questions. He answered me, "I'm really impressed that someone so similar to me is questioning me. I want to know why." I told him that I was there questioning whether there were other timelines and if I would have control over them. He, with a mocking look, said, "Why should I know that?" "I'm not a scientist, I work in an office, man." That was very realistic. And then at that moment, I asked the key question. After he answered that, I had a strong urge to prove to him that I had control over that timeline. And I asked, "What is impossible to do in this reality?" He answered me, "Here it's impossible to be happy." At that moment, I put my hand on his chest, basically on my own chest, and a light came out of my hand. And I knew that I was, in quotes, casting a happiness spell, turning him into a happy person. I wasn't successful, and that's when I got really shaken, right? Because I was in a lucid dream where I had control of the situation and I wasn't successful. He remained not happy. Even though light came out of my hand, I woke up feeling a bit bitter, right? It was a really bad feeling not making my other self happy. Very strange, really strange not having control in a lucid dream. And I asked myself, man, what if that really is a timeline? There's nothing that proves it, and there's nothing that disproves it either. It could have just been a dream where I wasn't fully lucid to control the details, but it could also have been a timeline. These are things we'll never know. And then, from that moment on, I was about to complete the 30 days. There were still, I think, 4 days left, and I decided to end the experiment there, because I wasn't going to get an answer. So, I think there are some things we'll die without knowing, and this is one of them. I don't know if dreams are just dreams or alternate realities, but one thing I can guarantee you is that it's possible to create these desired realities. Call it whatever you want, desired reality or lucid dream. And because in some situations where we have extreme control, it's exactly like what people have mentioned, going to the desired reality and coming back. A lucid dream that you go to and come back from. You can do the same things. You can live for a while in Hogwarts. You can have relationships with your crush that you want, which is impossible in this reality. So, if your goal is to go for a while to a reality you want to live in, you can achieve that with a lucid dream. I have a video here on the channel that teaches you how to have lucid dreams in 30 days. If you don't believe that lucid dreaming and alternate reality and other realities are the same thing, that's okay. You can try the techniques that people are sharing, but if you want to go to other places in what is called lucid dreaming, I have my video to teach you. But I really like reality, so my desired reality is being built here and not running away from it. Well guys, there are many other dreams that I wrote down here, but I mentioned to you the two most impactful ones. What came closest to me reaching any conclusion regarding this shifting thing? Otherwise the video would get too long as well. If you like this video, leave a like to support my work and comment. So what did you think of this experience? What paths do you think I could have taken? And until the next experience, this happens very often. I don't know why my mind created the trigger of falling from the elevator. It's a dream. If one day I fall in an elevator in real life, if the elevator falls, I'll die happy because I'll be expecting it to be a dream.